Hi, I'm Adam Hills, and this is my life in books. My favourite childhood book was called The Bunyip of Berkeley's Creek. I don't know. It was a kid's book. I think because it was particularly Australian, and it was about the Bunyip of Berkeley's Creek, and I think because also our house, where I lived on the edge of Sydney, there was bushland all the way down to and a creek at the bottom. So as a kid, I was convinced that there was a bunyip down there, and I was devastated when I found out that there wasn't. Sorry, I've dredged up a really harsh childhood memory now, but it's still my favourite book. There actually wasn't a book that made me want to write this book. I wanted to write this book because my book wasn't out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had all these stories, and I was pretty sure they were my stories, and nobody else had my stories. And it was other people that I had been telling these stories to, friends or comedians, that said, "Well, you should write a book." And in fact, I remember one comedian that I said, "Oh, I've got all these stories. I want to put them in a book, but I mean, everyone's got stories." And he went, "Yeah, but I don't want to hear everybody else's stories. I want to hear yours." And I went, "Oh, okay, right." So the book that made me want to write this book is my book. I just wanted to write it and get it out there. One of my favourite memoirs is by Harpo Marx, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm going to tell you now, this is the vaguest my life in books ever, because I either can't remember the name of the book or the author, so play along at home, see if you can find the name of it. Harpo Speaks. I think it's called Harpo Speaks, and it's just such a beautiful recollection of his life in the Marx Brothers, and this guy who never spoke at all. And I remember a couple of beautiful bits from it. One was that he and his wife couldn't have children, so they adopted, and they weren't sure how many to adopt, and he said, "I want to adopt as many children as it takes to fill all the windows in my house when I come home from work." And they did. Eventually they had a big enough family that he had a big house, that when he came home from work there'd be a face in every window when he came home. And the other thing I remember from the book is him saying, "If you ever want to see the real me, watch me in any of the Marx Brothers movies when I'm playing the harp, because that's when I'm not in character. That's when my real self comes out." And I think that, it's such a beautiful and heart-rending, you wouldn't know I was an author, heart-lifting, heart-inflating memoir. Harpo Speaks, really, really lovely. The last series of The Last Leg, the TV show, I always buy presents for the other guys on the show and for the writers. And so the one most recently I bought, Josh Whittaker, A History of English Cricket. Alex Brooker was a book about the World Cup in Italy in like the 90s. And then one of our writers, I bought a book, a kind of behind-the-scenes book of the making of Hamilton, the musical. So, I mean, that gives you an idea of the people that I work with, of the kind of eclectic range of people that I work with, that they love either Hamilton, football, cricket. And one of the writers one year, I bought a collection of Peanuts cartoons, because I honestly believe that Charles M. Schulz and the Peanuts cartoons are as influential on my life as any other book I've ever read. Snoopy is my Hunter S. Thompson. I'm pretty sure my favourite book of all time is Jitterbug Perfume by Tom Robbins. And it was actually the book that got me back into reading. I remember at the end of a stand-up tour, the person that I was touring with bought me this book, and I guess I don't know, I hadn't really been reading a lot of books for a few years, and it just blew my mind. It's almost, for me, as influential as kind of like, the Bible or the Tao Te Ching or the Bhagavad Gita or anything that's spiritual that touches people. It's this crazy story that goes over hundreds of years and reincarnations and ends up with a man that has bees instead of hair, but it kind of all makes sense somehow. So I think, Tom Robbins' Jitterbug Perfume is one of the most amazing books I've ever read.